Hello, welcome back to LIVENODING Live Noding. In this episode, I will be talking for 1 hour, just going through the basic and fundamental of SVerchok nodes, SVerchok add-on. So I'm gonna pretend as if this is like Blender conference, and maybe I'm giving like this talk, this unrehearsed, and I'm just gonna doodle and make something with nodes. But I'm just gonna go through the basic at least. So I'm gonna give myself 1 hour. So timer started. So let's get started. So okay, SVerchok add-on. If you haven't installed it already, under Blender Preference add-on, search for SVerchok. And once you install it, you have this new options. It has the informations, and you can also always check for new versions and upgrade it just by clicking here. Okay, SVerchok add-on, you can download it from GitHub. And this has some information, the basics. Didn't give you much. SVerchok was actually developed by some people here. All these names that I grow to know them over the last 5 or 10 years. Anyhow, so normally in the past when SVerchok was being developed, people always post issues or how they started with the nodes and developed the nodes from here. So these GitHub issues actually have a lot of informations and examples of nodes. But if you wanna just get started, so let's just do it. So I always started from here and create new nodes. So this is a good start. You can delete everything in the 3D scenes, and you can start creating something. Shift A is a good menu to call, or Shift spacebar, but I use Shift A. And these days, because I memorize some of the nodes names, I can always search for something. So normally, if I wanna have a cube, I just search for cube. It doesn't have cube. We need to use box, of course. And then if I want to extrude it, I just call extrude, just type extrude, and there's a lot of extrude options. I think I can use extrude separate face. And if I want to connect these two, I can manually do it. So vertices, polygon, and then I use vmesh viewer, and it's gonna give me the output. So this is one example, and I can do this. And I always Shift A and insert random number, for example. Use integer or float, and the value goes into the height. So I can have random value, random extrusions. So this is one of the basics. But you might wonder, okay, there's so many things happening at the same time. Yeah, because you also first have to know in SVerchok you will be dealing with vertices, edges, and polygon data at all the time. So you can think of this as a single data value anyway, data input. And you can always use the stethoscope node to look at each data. So vertices data, this is the points data, the edges data, and polygon data. It gives you the indices of the components that's being connected or put together into a polygon face. Okay, so this is the basics. But if you don't remember any of the nodes name, if you are using SVerchok for the first time, it's a good idea to look at all these nodes. They are over 200, maybe nearly 300, I don't know. But take a look at them. I haven't actually used all of them. I only use some that I use a lot. But there are plenty, and you gotta. If you want to know where to start, my suggestion is to start with generator. And then the fish here is a good start. Visualizations. Maybe I should do that for now instead of using search. Maybe I should just use this, because those are the most important. We can start with all this generator. Okay, you can create lines, segment, lane. I think it's a good place to start. The curves, surfaces, and fields, these three are new. They are quite new from this year. They are kind of like allowing you to actually use curve and surface and nerves. It's actually more like SVerchok wanted to do from the beginning, but Blender mostly works with polygon, so these are actually quite powerful. And the rest of them, of course, transform. This one is also quite useful. I use this a lot. Modifiers also something. If you modify the components of polygons, you will use these modifiers. CAD, this is also very useful and fundamental. But let's start with a line, for example. So even with something like a line, if you wanna display it, first of all we need to use viz, and viewer draw is the fastest. So there is a line here. I can increase the number of points. The line is growing in x-axis. You can change it to y, and also z. So the line now is growing in the z-axis. We can change the size of the line. We can change the number of vertices of the line. There are many other options, like like for example this number. Okay, step. Okay, step is actually quite interesting. So you can again use the random numbers. Where is random number here? Somewhere. So I didn't memorize it that way. Okay, random numbers probably here. So we can have a single number. We can have number range, random. Okay, let's say we want to have 10 random number. Again, you can use the stethoscope. This is all the random numbers that's been generated. It's a value between 0 and 1. You can always remap it. You plug this in there. So now we have random number that's actually giving the distance between points to generate this line. Okay, so that's very powerful. And we have two other options, OP and OD. This one sometimes not the clearest, but you can see the example documentation. If you select this node and then goes to item and find the documentation online, you can do that. But basically there is this O and the origin and destinations. So random, if you have random vector, so random 3 values vectors, and then you have 2 of them, you can plug into the origin and the destinations. And I believe if I make this smaller, yeah, so this is origin. Oh, that's actually the directions. Or maybe it gets mixed. Yeah, I think this is probably clearer. So if I zero this out, this is random vector position, right? Random points. And I also have random points here. If they have the same seed value, they're just gonna connect there. So this is with the same seed value and the random value. You can see the difference, but it's basically connecting those 2 points. So in the past, we don't actually have this convenience of having line and random vector. This is actually kind of new, so let me save this as fundamental. In the past, if we want to do this with 2 random vector, we actually need to list join or list zip them together. So SVerchok actually have a lot of this listing. If you search for list, so list join, list zip, list modifier, lots of lists. You can shuffle, you can select list item, you can reverse, etc. So list is very powerful. I couldn't remember. Okay, this is where the list is. Yeah, I don't need to explain it, but you will definitely use this at some point. So in the past, if we have 2 random points and we want to connect the dots, we actually need to use this. So there's a node called UV connections, and UV connection is how you connect the dots. This is actually another node that's really quite powerful and fundamental in SVerchok. So you can connect the dots. You have random points here, and you want to connect the dots. So you use UV connections. Let me hide this green one. We are not getting anything because maybe we need to generate edges data. So this is random number, and we are generating the number on the fly, and then we connect the dots using edges, and we can bake it, and we get something. And if we want to have 2 values connected together, we need to list zip it like that. So slightly surprising when you first start it, but I think SVerchok is actually really good for computational thinking. It's a so there are other add-on like animation nodes and Sorcar maybe for modeling. It's really good for modeling, and animation nodes for animations, but animation nodes is also quite deep. SVerchok actually, I found, can help you with to understand computation, and you can actually understand coding easier if you know SVerchok, because everything in SVerchok is visual. You can see things happening. So this is these are 2, I think, the most fundamental. But I use random a lot, but I also use vector P. I think vector P field is nice because we can put things in the grid. So that reminds me that I also use plane a lot. So let me hide this. By the way, you can control click on a node, and you can have quick viewer. Okay, it's not perfect, but it's not bad. It's not perfect. I mean, like this is like connecting those 2 together, where you really want to see just this. So control click here. You can randomize, and then you can also randomize further, like that. Randomize the seed. Now you have like a scattered clump of points. You can specify the number. But like I said, this besides this random vector, you probably want to use vector P at some point. Vector P is like this. So this is 1000 points, 10 by 10 by 10. Okay. And you can arrange, you can change the size in X, Y, and Z, and you can also randomize. So this is like the matrix. You have 3D points arranged in the grid. You can merge the distance. So randomize, merge the distance is actually very clever. So if you randomize and merge the distance, you have points that's kind of scattered, and if it's get too close, it's gonna get rid of it. Very useful. Those two very useful. And then also plane, of course. Plane is simple. So this is 100 points arranged in a plane. Of course, plane allows you to create like a grid or polygon, but you can also just use the points. So X, Y, Z, you can center it. There are other options like num, step, similar to line. So that's plane grid. You will definitely use this quite often. So this tree can become kind of tool to arrange something like box. Okay, so now we are switching to box. This is a box node. Doesn't seem like much, but you can of course use the random. You can resize it. You can arrange them in this way, you know, like kind of nice and tidy. Normally with SVerchok, I'll try to keep we're gonna try to keep the matrix here under 1000, but you can have 10,000 or billions if you merge the thing together. So I'm gonna show that very quickly why. So currently we actually have 125 data coming in, generated on the fly. Okay. So that actually matters. So this is 100 data. If I bake, we actually have 100 objects here. And Blender might surprise if you suddenly make like 1 million objects. It does not always like that. So normally my trick is the quickest way is to use viewer mesh and plug in this box, plug in this plane. So now we have 1,100 objects, right? But if we merge it, it's become like a single object. And that's actually a good thing, because single objects, if we now have 10,000 data of this box, it's gonna perform faster. Or maybe in this case, maybe not good idea. Keep it simple for now. But that's a box. Box being duplicated, arranged in the plane. Any plane that you like. And so what else we can do here? Box is actually another node that's quite special. You can change to the bottom, and then let's play with the matrix here. Okay, that's cool. You can play around with this. So now let's play with this a little bit. This one is expecting 3 different data, so we need something here. It's a vector because this is orange color. If it's green, it's a single value. So we can have something like this. We can randomize the X and Y, while also we can randomize the Z. We can have random number for each one of them. So how many we have? We have 25, so we need 25 number. So this is random number for the box height. We can have random number for the X and Y also. Let's randomize the seed, plug this into the X, and plug this into the Y. So we have all these boxes. And in Blender, we have a way to show the color of random. because this is a single object, unfortunately we only have a single color. If we unmerge it, now we have 25 objects. Turn on cavity. Okay, very nice. We can randomize the seed. So box arranged in a plane and randomize in size, thanks to this one feature of box matrix. Okay, cool. So that we cover box and how to randomize boxes in places. Cool. Yeah, we can hide or we can delete everything. We can hide this like that. We can turn off this so for being alive. So what's next? Generator, plane. So SVerchok is actually really good with making shapes, especially 2D shapes. So n-gon, circle, triangle. Actually, I don't use triangle much, but triangle is also here. So triangle, pentagon. So we have other tiling methods. We just see hexagon, polygon grid, pentagon tiler. This is actually also quite powerful. So if we want to make n-gon, okay, n-gon and circle, those two I use a lot. And we can use pentagon tiler for that. Let's use viewer draw. Create just a circle. You can have a circle or just a vertices with edges only. Which one you like. And pentagon tiler, let's try this. This is by default. It's gonna generate this kind of pattern. Yeah, this one give you. This is actually more like if you are using it like this. You have all sort of presets. Which is pretty cool. I don't use this often, but it's actually quite powerful. So instead of using pentagon tiler, maybe use the other one. Hexagon, polygon grid. Okay, this one. Let's get rid of that. This one is the one that I want. So you can use the center of this polygon grid. There you go. You have like hexagon arrangement. You can, of course, show and display the hexagon like that. And we have all kind of presets. And you can use circle or also n-gon. With n-gon you can randomize. N-gon, there isn't much with n-gon. I mean, but it's also quite powerful. Let me show you one little trick. This is an n-gon put into arrangement like polygon grid. And let's see. Yeah, okay, that's kind of nice. So this is a 2D shapes. Doesn't seem much. You can randomize the seed. You can see each one of them is pretty much the same shape. Nothing really interesting here, except that you can use range number. I use this a lot, like that. Just by doing that, now you have these n-gon shapes, and for each n-gon being generated, you can have a different shape, right? I think this is very cool. But make sure the one you're generating it's the same number here, so you don't overload it with values, so you have a lot of things going on here where you don't really want that. So let's change this to step and reduce this number. So we need to match it with the number of this the total number of this polygon grid center. So this is what I do. We have 61, apparently 61. So this goes in there. Yep, so this is what we have now. Random shapes generated, arranged in the polygon grid. You can also do the same with circle. So let's go back to circle. So with this circle, you can randomize them. There's something actually fancier, noise, vector noise or noise displays. Let's use noise displays actually. Just push this circle using noise. And we want each one of them has random seed. Okay. It seems to be giving something that slightly different from what I want. Maybe I need to split it. Okay, yeah, this one works. See, this one is randomizing per points, but what I want is for each circle, I want to have random noise value by the seed, by this random number range. Okay, so now we can have this. I think this is pretty cool. I think this is for the wallpaper for this video. If I bake this, I'm gonna end up with all kind of shapes based on the circle that's been deformed using noise. So like I said, SVerchok is really actually quite powerful with 2D. Of course, it's also powerful with other things, but making 2D shapes, any kind of 2D shapes you can generate using the nodes here. Okay. So from here, you can always extrude it up, but make sure you know whether you want to create 61 objects or just a single objects. Maybe it's a good idea to so here this value here, face, we only have a single face data, but SVerchok is smart enough to turn it into 61 data, so we have this result. In the past, we actually need to use list repeat. So repeat this like 61 times. I think it's something like that, but not important for now. If we extrude region, I think this should work. Multiple extrude or by just along the normal extrude scale. Look at it from the top. And you can do again number range or random number. Plug this into the height. So this is a This is interesting. It doesn't seem to be doing. Oh yeah, it's not doing it with the height again. This is it's doing it with the extrusions. That's why we have this curve. Seems like it's extruding it 10 times. Where what you want is just extruding it one time with random value. So you probably need to use list split once again. Okay, this time it works. 61 random value. Okay, cool. So we can have this and we can bake it. So I think this is nice. But anyway, I'm gonna stop there. And I will continue with another example. So we have all this. The next example should be yeah, SVerchok is good with shape. I have to go back there again. So if we actually have circle, we actually have things like trim, crop, actually it's called crop mesh 2D, and we also have mirror, symmetrize. So I didn't talk much about transform, but if you have a circle and you symmetrize it, you get another circle. But if you start to use like things like move or transform mesh, you can see it's actually kind of blending the shapes together. This is actually like a mirror modifier. So I recently started to use this. So this is also a quick way you can generate interesting shapes like that. Like a leaf, for example, you can bake. This is really a clean leaf. Yeah, this is the radius of the circle. Of course, you can always use transform mesh this way. Transform the mesh in X, Y, Z, of course. And you can always rotate it if you like. So you can make like a heart shape if you are careful. Yeah, but that's interesting, I think. Interesting to know, and you can also crop it. So we're gonna crop the circle that we have here with another shape. Let's try just plain. And we center the plane, and then we can change this size, the shape of the plane. So you're really just doing all this procedurally, and really quite powerful. You can crop it in any way you like. You can also use transform again. Again, this is also another example. This should go into my book, I guess, my imaginary SVerchok books. So yeah, you can always bake it. So imagine you're having to create this shape, but procedurally or using code, it's different. It's a little bit harder. It's much easier with nodes. Okay, the next thing, let's take a look at curve and surface and all these things. They're actually really quite powerful. I like the one. So these three connected together: vector field, graph, and lines. Okay, let's try this anyway. Vector field, lines. We need a field. Noise vector field. and we have a bunch of vertices. We can use vector P. We have 64 points now. Then just connect the dots. So we got, so far we got nothing. I might need to just reload this blend. Oh, okay, it's hidden. Okay, cool. File save as. So what's going on here? We have, okay, we start with points, and then this generate noise, and the noise is being applied, and it's gonna create these vector field lines. So this is really quite interesting. And if we want to output this into something that you can render instead of just polygon edge, you can use bevel a curve, and I think this is a good way to do it. There are many ways. Okay, we need to resample. Reduce this size of the circle. Okay, cool, very nice. Reduce the number of circle points. So we end up with this. You might notice that it's become like a single object. You might need to separate the line. So that's actually something that I should have covered. But if you just use like a polyline here, actually polyline viewer, sorry, you're gonna have multiple curves, and you still need to separate the curve based on these iterations. Let's see if we use polygon and edge and bake. Oh, okay, apparently it's single objects. I know. Separate, loose. We need to do this. Now we actually have 64. If we bake this, we have 64 data being separated. So maybe now we can use polyline viewer, which actually generate curve, and we have 64 lines. Pretty neat, pretty useful and powerful. So I think that's also important. With these vector lines, you know, this, if you also use it with if I used to make I use SVerchok to make a lot of abstract stuff. So if we actually indeed use the bevel a curve again and use like n-gon randomized, plug this in, plug this together, you have these random shapes. And you can output this, right? And Blender have a lot of modifier, right? So you can just mirror this. Actually, I like this a lot. This is my trick in coming up with a lot of random shapes very, very quickly. And then remesh modifier. And you can randomize the seed. Oh, yeah, the seed of the n-gon or the seed of this noise. So yeah, that's a lot. That's quite a lot of example already, and I still have 20 minutes left. So what else? What else can we generate? What other things? The easiest, yeah, the easiest one, of course. If I get if my brain gets too tired of SVerchok and nodes, I usually just create grease pencil, create a blank grease pencil, and then go to draw and just start drawing something. I think this is the purest form of 3D art, is starting with the 2D lines, or it's not actually 2D lines. Grease pencil is actually 3D. You start with grease pencil, and SVerchok have this GP thing. You can just load the grease pencil by its name, its layer. You can pick a frame, and then you have a resampled grease pencil. So you see here it's actually using UV connection, and there's this vector interpolation. Vector interpolation is very cool. Now we can just revolve. Vertices and edges. So we got something already. We can resample this. Okay, and you can bake. So I have shown you this in my previous video also. Very cool, right? Grease pencil, and then this is the output. You can go back to the grease pencil, just draw another one. You can make all kind of shapes very quickly. Random pot or bowl or plate or vase, anything that's revolved. You might want to merge it and also just solidify. So yeah. What else here? What else is here hidden, hiding? So we got a lot of this thing already, right? What if we want to save it? What if we want to save it? For example, if you want to save just this, you can always use the preset. So NT, so this panel, select a bunch of nodes. You can save as preset based on the selection. So that's a quick way you can save this. So let me hide this guy. Let's display something. Okay, I like this one. For today, it's actually, I can just make video about this, but I'm talking for 1 hour. This can be saved here. Random circle extrude. So if I delete everything, I can just call it, and we have it back. Okay, we lost. Okay. And if you want to have like some control on the 3D scene, you can do that. If I'm not wrong, just create a number for this. We want to enable it to 3D view, and we plug it to the maybe the seed of this. So we have control in 3D view. SVerchok, bring it up. Scan for props. We have this seed now. good idea to label. So random shape this cylinder. Oh yeah, I forgot to talk about cylinder. Cylinder is actually very cool. So we, apart from all this, we also have, oh, I actually saved this one. I didn't save what I did earlier. Wow. I hope I didn't save. I didn't lose too much. Anyway, let's continue. I didn't talk much about cylinder, but the cylinder is one of the most powerful. You also have torus knot, all this really powerful generator. You also have Cricket and Suzanne. Yep, a lot of generator, like Hilbert 3D is also, and Bricks is also powerful. Anyway, I can talk about all those someday. I have 15 minutes left. Maybe I can talk about some of the presets and also about script node. So SVerchok have some example. This is okay, an empty blender. Again, I will save it. Fundamental 5. SVerchok and presets. So presets comes in. So we have example here. This is all the presets that come with SVerchok. It's actually an example, right? Example of things like petal. Oh, didn't give you anything. Okay, give you this. Petal and text. The example works if you give a number. This is like it's almost like a script node. One of the example. There are many cool example. Spiral surface. Okay, this is also quite cool. You can go through each one of them and look at the result it's generated. Well, and how it's been created. So those are examples. There's a lot, and I make maybe over almost 1,000, not really, maybe hundreds, some example. Those example, and there's also something called script node, scripted node like SNL. This single node give you more presets. Okay, there's a lot. The one that I use a lot is Voronoi 3D, of course, my favorite. We can start with a box. Polyline 3D will separate 3D shapes into pieces. You can bake it. So yeah, it's make like a cell fracture. This thing itself is actually a script node. It's a script that you can generate in SVerchok. There are a lot of examples here. There's a documentation on how you work with this, but basically you type this and it's going to generate parameter on the fly. Input allows you to put input, have this kind of parameters, and generate things. Could be too much if you try to digest everything in one day. Like me, I'm talking like for 1 hour just talking about this can be pretty tiring. So anyway, you can use factor P, where you remember factor P. So factor P will generate points, and then this will separate it with. So these points really matters, and you can Voronoi like randomize. See how it's separating it? It's create this thing. You can merge these things. So that's just one example of SNL, scripted node. So there are other things like these presets. I think some of them comes with Blender. Oh, some of this one is the one that I created. These are some examples. Lloyd 2D. What is that, for example? Is this a script node? Maybe it's script node, maybe it's not. This is actually something that I never use. This is actually a monad. Inside the monad there's Voronoi 2D origins. So if you provide with random vector, it's going to create this kind of like points that's kind of average itself. So yeah, I hardly ever use this, but that's because there are so many nodes. Basically, you can't digest everything at the same time. You better treat like with SVerchok. It's a good idea to treat it like a kind of like an adventure game, kind of like a Zelda, right? Zelda, you start with nothing. You're gonna find a lot of items. You're gonna find a lot of temple. Okay, this is you. You're gonna learn and explore all these nodes. Eventually you find nodes and items that you use often, and you're gonna put together, you can create new nodes. I gotta say, I mean, SVerchok is not complete. I don't know, maybe it's complete. It's always gonna be developed further because it's node based, but it's a very interesting, really. So just now I'm flattening this random vector, and I can rewire it into anything. I can actually randomize this as well. So I'm randomizing the random vector, and I'm flattening it. It's also a nice little trick here. So again, there's monad, there's preset, there's script node, like there's a lot of these examples. Those are some of them are advanced. There's donuts by hand. Look at this. Donuts by hand is this just like a torus? Yeah, I think it's like a torus, but it's building everything possibly. Let's find something that's interesting. Genetic algorithm. Blender logo. Okay, we still have Blender logo. Cool. But this is the old Blender logo, right? It's just flat. The new Blender logo is a little bit skewed. So we can use this apply matrix thing. We can skew it a little bit. Anyway, you got the idea. Blend the logo, you can bake it. Still just an outline, you can convert it to curve. Yeah, so there's a lot, but it's very interesting add-on, very powerful. And from the first creator, maybe Nikitron and a couple of his friends, and then Zephy, Linus, and I can't mention all, Dorman, Victor. Anyhow, but it's yeah, it's like it's very amazing that just a bunch of people make this add-on, and it gives you all these nodes and give you so much that if I make a book, it's gonna be pretty thick, 500 pages at least. So anyway, yeah, good place to start. Take a look at this list, make a notes. List and numbers and SVerchok. Actually, with SVerchok itself, if you think of it like a Matryoshka doll, this doll, that's, if you open it up, there's smaller dolls and small dolls, kind of like a list inside a list inside a list. That's SVerchok. Like there's like unlimited potential there, unlimited variations and creations that you can create. Some of them still can be complicated and goes pretty deep, but it actually, all this will help you to understand code. If you start coding, you play around with SVerchok, maybe it will help you to conceptualize your ideas very quickly, especially for making 3D. And yeah, I think SVerchok itself, even though when I first started SVerchok, when I started learning SVerchok, I know I have fear of code. I cannot code or program. It's all really quite abstract. And then I learned about all this. I can generate numbers. Apparently, numbers have some kind of algorithm, and each of these nodes is, of course, code, Python codes that you can read. Also, you can look at the source, and yeah, I think there's a lot. There's a lot here. Well, anyway, yeah, that's 1 hour talk presentation about SVerchok. If I ever gonna present it at Blender conference, maybe I give a better examples and more interesting, like making the whole city or make like whole theme park using SVerchok. But for now, it's just the basic and the fundamental of SVerchok. Hopefully you find this useful. Yeah, so that's about 1 hour. What else I should talk about? I think that's pretty much it. Hopefully you find this useful. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye.